Hello, Otafest podcast listeners. This is Season 8, Episode 31 of the Otafest podcast. And with me today, we have Nancy, Jei, and Dio.
That is a Nancy, a Jei, and a Dio.
Wow. I know those people.
I've also heard of Angelo.
And there is exactly one of each of us.
But which one is real?
Exactly one. No duplicates. That'd be sus.
Not this one.
Maybe the real Otafest podcast was the friends we made along the way.
We made friends?
You're
Dang.
my
You guys have
friends.
friends?
The podcast is real.
But how can the podcast be real if our ears aren't real?
The podcast is the metaphor of all of the entirety of Otafest.
If you're the podcast and I'm the podcast, then who's flying the plane?
Oh crap.
But before we get on to these shenanigans, let's get on to news and announcements. Tickets for Otafest's Maid and Butler Cafe are now on sale. Enjoy delicious treats, unique entertainment, games, and even a stunning dance performance. For Otafest's 25th anniversary celebrations, we're also featuring 2 bonus sessions with their own unique menus and activities. Cafe tickets, info at otafest.com/cafes.
Introducing Windrise, the cosplay band from Edmonton, Canada. Their woodwinds, brass, and piano create dynamic sounds that complement their focus on video games and anime music. Specializing in Genshin Impact tracks, they're gaining popularity with gamers and music lovers. But they don't stop there. Windrise is constantly expanding their repertoire to include Studio Ghibli, Mario Kart, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and more. What sets them apart is their dedication to cosplay. They embody their favorite characters during their performances.
And of course, you can celebrate Calgary's proudly non-profit anime festival's 25th anniversary with 9,000 fellow fans. Weekend and Saturday passes are expected to sell out, so get yours today at otafest.com to avoid disappointment. Please check out otafest.com/ticket update for details and explanations for this year's updated ticket policies.
What, 9,000?
9,000?
It's over
9,000.
9,000!
Yeah, Dio took my joke.
Sorry, I think we were all thinking of it.
Yeah.
We're all
Exactly.
thinking it.
I didn't write that copy. Marketing
Someone
Oh,
wrote
did.
that copy. They knew what they were doing.
They knew what they were
Marketing
doing.
They
knew.
made us.
They were setting us
made
up for
to do
success.
this.
Yes.
Go-
They
God.
made me meme against my will.
It has been 15 years. 15 years since over 9,000 became a meme.
Don't say that.
I intimately remember that. I was
Why do you
before
know that?
college. That was because that was when I transitioned from one website to another website for my meme sources, specifically because of that meme.
Oh no.
Wow.
So I had to.
You know-
I had to Google it.
no.
It's been 17 years. It came out in
17 years.
2006.
Okay,
Yeah, that
he's not
sounds
that
right.
off, but some people have memories that are sort of landmarked by key world events, key shifts in politics or major wars.
when 9/11 happened?
And this guy is
I don't know, but I remember when over 9,000.
yeah, this guy is I remember when this meme was born.
Okay.
Okay.
I need to bring something up. I'm reading this information on Wikipedia. It's a meme that has a Wikipedia page, not a fan Wikipedia page, not any other third
real
party.
Wikipedia
Real
page.
Wikipedia
Not
page.
a know your meme page?
I'm about to blow your mind.
Okay.
The phrase refers to an alteration of the original line spoken in Japanese by the Saiyan character Vegeta, voiced in English by actor Brian Drummond in the 21st episode of the Ocean Productions English dub. In the original Japanese and English translated manga, as well as the original Japanese anime series dub, the power level of series protagonist Son Goku is actually read as over 8,000.
What?
Uh-oh.
We've been
Oh.
lied to.
We've been lied to. I guess over 9,000 had to be the
I mean, in
turning it up
fairness,
to 11.
over 9,000 is still over 8,000.
True, but we had to
But-
exaggerate to really make it hit home.
Weird. Anyways.
I'll take it.
Thank you for this side adventure. I
Mhm.
appreciate that.
The history of memes with Jay.
Oh, I think I had to. My gearbox had to think really hard for a second to try and understand, like, how did they hear it as 9,000? And it was probably Nana something.
No,
Hachi?
it says Hasen Ijoda, so you can't really make
Hasen.
Hasen is like Sen is
Hasen.
1,000.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe-
So-
Maybe 9 just matched up the lip flaps more.
yeah, I guess. Interesting. Anyways.
Mm. Yeah, I
My
don't want to
brain
read.
tried
I
to
don't want to
think-
read this whole article on this.
Yeah,
meme
that's
figure
gonna
out
be
why.
for later. But
But I
oh
think
my
it's
god,
pretty
now
funny.
now
But if
I
anyone
too
wants me to start a
have-
podcast where we just read
Analyze
Wikipedia
memes.
articles, hit me up.
and find out the true depths of meme history. Meme history worth noting enough that it has a normal person Wikipedia page.
I wonder if kids
Indeed.
know what over 9,000 is.
All right, if we really want to test, to our younger our younger
Listenership.
Gen Z aged listeners, do
Uh-huh.
you guys remember or know of all your base?
There's no way.
Oh boy.
That's what I
3,000%.
want to know.
Some of them might know,
Oh.
but they weren't there. I
weren't
was in the
there.
trenches.
They weren't there when the
Wow. I was
tomes
in
were
the-
written.
Speak.
Yeah, do not speak
Do
of
not
that
know
old
you're
magic.
Old
graduating.
magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
Oh gosh.
Thanks, Aslan.
Very good.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been a week.
It has been a week. It
It's
has
Sure
been-
has. 1 week
It's
since
been
you
a-
looked at me.
Cocked
Thanks.
your head to the side and said, I'm angry.
I was there
Thank
when the
you,
meme was
Angelo.
written. Of course, I'm angry.
But
it's been a week.
speaking of yeah, and speaking of
Mhm.
like young nerd dreams and ancient memes, there was always this sort of like, do you remember being a babby weeb and like the one thing you wanted to do was like go to Japan and just see it and like experience Akihabara,
Touch its grass.
touch
And
its
go to
grass,
Harajuku.
go to place Japan.
I
See
do.
his Shibuya crossing.
So
Yeah.
Yes. Go pet
me
the
and
Hachiko.
my sister, when we were much younger, we actually had a plan for this, you see. I was really into Pokemon, she was really into Sailor Moon, and so we figured if we box ourselves up, mail ourselves to Japan, we can get there for free.
That's so
You see,
cute.
we were so young, we didn't realize sending a parcel cost money.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yes, because that's the only logistical problem is
Yeah,
money.
that's the only issue there.
Not-
is money and not
not
how you
lit-
don't freeze in the cargo
Yeah,
hold.
not literal human trafficking.
But like self-trafficking.
Details.
You're transporting
Details.
yourself.
Is it an isekai? To another land? You're
Truck-kun
sending
is not
yourself to another
involved.
land?
I was
Maybe.
hit by a truck and reborn in another country.
Oh
Um,
no.
So many people I know are going this year, including all of us.
All of us, coincidentally,
Not at the
are
same
all-
time. Yeah.
Yeah, not quite at the
Unfortunately.
same time, but
Yeah.
all in similar amounts of time. Like we're
Yes.
all planning to go sort of in the fall,
Yes.
so we miss the heat and the humidity
Mhm.
of
Mhm,
Japanese
mhm.
summer. But before we get the sort of misery of, yes, it is winter in Canada, trying to go do winter in another country.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Correct.
But yeah, like so many of our friends have gone. I know a lot of it is due to, for example, Japan opened up last year for tourist travel, but
Yeah,
they
definitely.
weren't as like fully open in a way. Like they were like, oh, people
You
need to
had
be
to
a part in a
be-
tour. You had to be
Yes.
sort of shuttled from place to place to make sure you weren't contaminating everything with your
You needed to be supervised.
with your germs.
Gaijin germs.
Keep your germs to yourself.
Exactly. So
Take them back on the plane with you.
yeah, they opened
Mhm.
so but they've kind of opened up more now to general public. Most things are running again, which is nice. Obviously, like
Mhm.
again, so many
Mhm.
people on like my social media, I can see like they're all taking trips now. I'm like, damn you. And then someone almost
Soon.
convinced me to take a trip like right before Otafest. And I was like,
You're like, maybe this is not a good idea.
Technically, I could. I
But you're like,
literally
this is
could
not
go
a good
by
idea.
myself
Between now,
and just
Don't do that to
go.
yourself.
and
really?
then come back in time for Otafest. I could
Oh
literally
my
do that.
God. You
And then
have
be
jet
jet
no,
lagged.
and
lagged.
I mean that by like the logistics. Like, yeah, I'm talking about the money and the time. I have both. I can actually
You
go.
don't have the
but I-
mental.
Yes, you would
but
physically
it's
not
not.
survive.
It is not a smart idea.
No, definitely not. It's
not a
definitely
wise decision.
It qualifies as a smart
okay.
idea,
Yeah, but
but
I'm-
not
Indeed.
quite a smart idea.
But I'm
So-
being patient and I'm saving the money that I'm not spending on an impromptu May trip to Japan
In
for
order
my
to
actual
enjoy it
trip later
in the
this
fall.
Year. Exactly.
not. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, I had a bunch of travel planned pre-pandemic, and it all got canceled, as most
Mhm.
people's did.
And I recall
classic.
that Dio fought for a very long time before getting back the flight credit that
Yes,
she was
I
well
remember
due.
those.
Yes. I had a very long fight to get an airline credit, and then the airline credit expired, and so I had to fight to be like, well, that's not fair. And then I did eventually
Mhm.
get a refund. And so that was sort of my big impetus to not travel in 2021, was
Mhm.
because one, things were still very much up in the air, so I didn't want to like go through this process of like arranging for a ticket that I then once again cannot use. And then also just the fact that Japan was a little bit more isolated for a little bit longer than elsewhere in the world, and I didn't really want my first experience in
To be like a
new
half
place.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be like you get to go from one tourist location to another and you get to stay in this tourist resort and that's it. Go home. It's like I want to be able to go explore, the streets on foot and just experience the city nightlife
hmm
as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy and
So I'm
I
glad
have
we
both.
get to go.
Yeah, you guys are going for your first time. Nancy and I have been previous
handful.
times. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll
I'm
be
looking
interesting
forward
to
to it.
see. It'll be interesting to see the differences pre and
Mhm.
post pandemic. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't watched a lot because I actually don't I don't seek out or necessarily enjoy that content, but I know a couple of Japanese streamers and they sometimes do daily live streams in Japan. So they're
Oh,
walking
cool.
through like Akiba, for example, or some other places just doing whatever slightly touristy stuff or just regular things. And most of it appears fairly normal.
Mm-hmm.
The pace looks okay. Everything looks to the areas I've been to before very like still similar, iconic. I think some things, of course, like did close, which is always a shame. But aside from any of that, really, you kind of you'll still be in a really cool place traveling. Within some very interesting locations, especially if you go to places that you've never really been before. So,
Mhm,
and that's
mhm.
my plan for my
Mhm.
trip is I'm not really going to places that I've been before, except for like 2 exceptions, maybe. So we'll see.
What I found kind of interesting, we just had an upcoming guest of Otafest, Girl DM, just got back from her Japan trip. She went to this monkey park that just 2 weeks beforehand, Dio and I saw a YouTube video of.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, we did. We were like, whoa, Monkey Park. That's so cool.
The thing
And
that
then she's showing us images and we're like, oh, I recognize that.
We're like,
See,
wait a second. We've
that's
seen that.
so that's interesting because obviously you'll get that experience, but if you've ever been to a place where the landmarks or you've seen it either in the show or like it's very famous, like an Eiffel Tower type deal or Empire State Building, then once you get there, you're like, oh, I've been there. But I think it's the more interesting thing is once you come back and then you see it again realized in
You're like, oh, yeah.
again, like realized in like content, whether it's like an anime or another TV show or something like that, YouTube content. And you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I was literally there.
You're like, I remember this.
This is slightly related slash unrelated, but I remember during COVID, we're still in COVID technically, but the throes of COVID, one of the things I got into was GeoGuessr. And because I was like, I need to like mentally travel, even if I'm not physically traveling. And I played a lot of GeoGuessr. And GeoGuessr was so cool because I learned like I've never been amazing with geography, but I had like a general idea of geography. And now I got like a lot better. And there's like stupid meta things where you're like, well, the color of this telephone pole and the shape of these, like, then they would be like, indicates that I must be in Istanbul. Like there's like weird meta. I don't want to get into that, but it's funny if you ever look into it. But it did allow me to sort of, again, like virtually travel. And I played that for a while, but I also saw a YouTube content creator that I used to follow. Don't follow them anymore. They played GeoGuessr as well. And one of their pin drops was in Calgary, middle of downtown Calgary, as in I could walk there in 10 minutes from where I live. And I was like, what? Like they're like, cause these guys they're like, just California based, content creators. So like, maybe this is somewhere in like the north. Cause there was it was wintertime. I can tell you where the intersection was. It's just north of Crack Max. It's the one where Solly's wine store. That's the intersection. And it was sort of wintertime. I would think it was like November-ish, maybe like, overcast clouds, snow on the ground. And like, maybe this is like Minnesota or something like that. Like, and that's fair. Like, Canada
because
has
North America can look very samey, especially US and Canada. Yeah,
exactly. And and I'm just like literally sitting there, and this was not a live stream, so I was just watching the VOD, and I'm kind of like, I wish this was live right now so I could yell at them exactly where this is.
Exactly where it is.
There. It's right there.
You're like, I know that spot.
Yeah, that is actually really jarring. I have to say, it's not the same thing as like, oh, I've been to that landmark. It's like,
I
that's
live
pretty
there.
much my house.
That's my house.
And this is like not content where you traveled there and I expected you to be there. This is, pow, hello, we're 10 minutes away from my house.
Hello, we bring you live news updates from 10 minutes away from Jay's house.
Exactly, but they like teleported there as opposed
they
to like,
teleported there and you're like, whoa.
You're like, excuse me?
That reminds me, so there was a sort of like a meme going around on like TikTok. Mm-hmm. And this was because for a period of time, Google Maps had allowed, the feature might still exist, where you could add landmarks to Google Maps. And they didn't have to be official buildings or official names. You could add landmarks.
That sounds like a mistake.
And so I'm sure, you can guess that people put lots of silly little memes and troll things as landmarks. And so it became a TikTok meme to zoom in, like from Google Earth, to zoom in on these crazily named like landmarks that people had put on Google Maps. And I remember I was scrolling through my For You page and they zoom in and it starts zooming in and it lands on Calgary. And I'm like, okay, where are we going? This is weird. And like this TikTok has like 2.3 million views or something. So like, I'm like 2.3 million people have just like gone through this zoom in onto my city to see, I don't know what landmark it is. And it ended up being a landmark within walking distance of me, which was even more like amazing. And
That's
it was
technically walking distance of me.
And it was Sussy Baka Among Us Shrine.
What?
Oh. I did see,
which was like, I'll pull it up for later.
Sure.
But it was like,
that's interesting.
It was like a bunch of statues in like a park, and like because they looked like Among Us beans.
Oh.
Like they just happened to look like Among Us beans, and so someone was like, "Oh, it's Sussy Baka Among Us statue."
Oh, okay.
Or Among Us shrine.
I saw.
There was also another pond here in the city that was just called Amogus Lake.
Yeah, there it is. There is Amogus Lake.
Is that real?
Yeah.
It's not really.
Here it is.
Yeah, like it's not really like an Among Us thing.
Oh,
just,
I see.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's in the shape of a thing.
That's so dumb.
And
love
so people are like, well, it's made better because not only is the lake in the shape of Among Us bean, but the statues next to the lake they're statues of the lake.
Oh, interesting.
And so they also look like Among
They're
Us
all
beans.
sussy. I got you.
Wow.
Yep. So
That
anyways, that's
is not a coincidence that I ever would have expected to see.
No.
so anyway,
Life
shout out to
imitates art.
Targaryens. You can go to Sussy Baka Among Us Shrine. It's on
Yeah.
Google Maps.
I was walking along Stephen Ave the other day, and someone drew a Sussy Baka Amogus in chalk on the ground. And I was like,
Nice.
Oh, yeah,
so,
yeah.
but that's weird to me because I will infer now that most of the time it's kids who play with chalk. Like kids draw on the street.
Sidewalks with
And when I say
chalk.
kids,
love Among
to be
Us.
clear, I don't mean 12-year-olds or 14-year-olds. I mean
You mean,
like
like,
6-year-olds and
10.
4-year-olds.
Yeah, like 10 and under.
Yeah. And that was
Look.
really weird to me. I was like,
But the kids love Among Us. They do.
They do.
Like
Amogus
little,
for the-
little
look.
kids.
Amogus is
Love
for the
Among Us.
children.
The first year of pandemic in the summer,
Mhm.
a lot of summer like kids programs had been either stalled or canceled or the
Mhm.
general mayhem of that first year of pandemic. But I had a colleague tell me over lunch that his daughters were off with their friends playing real life Among Us. Like not
What?
Among
Oh,
Us on their phones, not
no.
Among Us on their PCs or their Switch or whatever. They had devised a real life in-person interactive version of Among Us.
Among Us tag.
And
I
it
think
was
me and
amazing.
Mhm.
Angelo immediately were like, "Uh-oh." But
You know what I was thinking?
Yeah, I know.
You know those girls who took Slender Man too
No,
seriously?
Yeah.
not that far, not that
yes.
far.
No.
But no, they were playing Among Us tag. Good for them.
Yes, good,
Good
for
for
them. But like seriously,
The kids love Mogus.
it blows my mind that it has taken shape in a non-online interactive form because good for you kids, good for you.
They're getting outside and having fun and being
Exactly. They're going
sus.
outside and having fun.
Yep.
I agree.
I
Speaking.
disagree with having fun.
Fun's
Well-
disgusting.
Of course. I've never heard of it. But tell me more.
About not having fun?
Yes.
Well, have you ever used sandpaper before?
No.
Several times.
God,
Why?
I don't know where I'm going with this.
I also
know.
don't know.
Oh,
I'm
man.
scared.
I was expecting there to be like a crazy Angelo level story, but now I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, I was like,
This-
where's the punchline coming?
No.
Like, I was like, I don't know what punchline to brace myself for that involves
All right,
sandpaper.
well, I will help. Something that I thought that would be more fun, but is slightly less enjoyable than I wanted it to be, is this is not something I do very often, but I'm playing Skyward Sword HD on the Switch right now.
Okay.
And what I'm getting at is that I don't typically go back to play a game that's earlier in the series.
Why is that?
Well, I'll kind of get into it right now, but the first thing is like I will say I want to make a distinction. There's a difference between going back to play a game that's early in the series that you have played before. Like if I'm gonna go play Pokemon Yellow, I'll probably have a decent time. I won't like. But if I'm playing, in this case, Skyward Sword, I am not enjoying it as much as I hoped because I see the like backwards movement of like game mechanics, quality of life, storyline implementation, character
Mm.
development. Everything is like seeing a development. Like I feel like I'm almost playing a
You're watching
super
the-
well
you're
polished
watch-
beta of
Yeah,
like
you're
the current
you're
level
seeing
game.
the game devolve.
Exactly.
Right? Because, like, if you start. No, this totally makes sense. Because, like, I remember playing Final Fantasy X-2. a wee babby, and I loved that game. That game is great. Still, in my opinion, I will defend this. This is my flag on a hill. Is like that. It is one of the best Final Fantasy games ever. And then you go back, and so I played Final Fantasy X-2 before playing Final Fantasy X.
Oh,
Which
you
was a
did?
mistake. Yeah.
I was
Which
gonna
a bit
ask
of
So
a
I don't know
mistake.
anything. I don't
I
know
was
anything
gonna
about
ask
10 because
that.
I've never played. But that sounds like a crime to me.
It was very criminal, and I wish I hadn't, because then you go back. I went back, and like I will make the argument that the story quality in 10 is, the narrative is far superior to the sequel. But I mean, I think
would agree.
it's very difficult to make a sequel have a better story than the original. Like, it's very tough.
Yeah.
But
but
okay, so my
I went
argument
back
there is that
and I-
10 had a fantastic like political story that they could have taken in a bunch of different places. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, definitely. But then I went back and I played 10, and like the story and narrative is better, but you're like, oh man, like the turn-based battle is good, but 10-2 was so much better.
Like, it's clunkier,
It's like,
right? Everything is
yeah,
clunkier.
it's clunkier. I'm just like, oh,
Now,
I really should have done this in order. Like,
Yeah.
dang.
Now, like, I would say that story-wise, because each Zelda game is its own story within a greater timeline narrative, it's not a
Mhm.
big deal. There's very few direct sequels. I think one of the very few direct sequels is coming out now for Tears of the Kingdom, which will be Breath of the Wild 2, essentially. But that being said, Skyward Sword is, for people who don't know, like, it went Twilight on the Wii. It was Twilight Princess.
Mhm.
Then it was Skyward Sword. And then technically, then it went to Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild had a Wii U and a Switch release. So
Yeah.
Skyward Sword is right, like, gameplay wise, all the mechanics are right before. And I will say that there's a lot of things there because they tried to, feature a lot of Wii playability. So like we're talking
Yeah.
like motion controls, for example, is a big one. But there's like just so many things where you see, like, if you know Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite Zelda games, you see everything from Skyward Sword, like they polished like a beta 0.8. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild. And it makes me really mad because there are things that are like, shit, this is so tedious, or like, I don't like this control method, or like this like other thing is just slightly annoying. But the rest of it, like, I can see how it's almost put together and it's almost just polished enough. And I'm sure,
Yeah.
and the time that it came, like, when I played like Twilight Princess, I should have just played Skyward Sword, because goddamn, like, I wouldn't be like frustrated about it now. But it looks so good as the HD remake. Like, the
Yeah.
concepts are all there. But I don't know if I will, like, from this experience, because I said I don't really do it often. From this experience, I don't know if I'll ever do it again. Like, I'd
Yeah.
have to be very motivated to try.
I know that feeling intimately. This happened to me and a friend back when I was in high school.
Oh.
So, in the land of video games based on movies, most of them are bad. The vast majority of them are bad. But up there at the pinnacle, in the very short list of movie video games that are good, is Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King on the GameCube.
I've heard it was good.
A fantastic, almost like a Dynasty Warriors hack and slash, where you play through the levels of what was the movie as the characters, unlocking new abilities, and multiplayer.
I think I've played that
was
one.
Fantastic. It was so good. And once you finish everything, once you finish off the base game, you can then go through each level with characters that wouldn't have been there before.
Mm-hmm.
It was an amazing experience. But there's only so much content, right? So me and my friend Nick at the time, we were like, okay, let's head over to Blockbuster. let's rent The Two Towers, the game that came right before it, because it was said to be very good as well. And you know what? It delivered on all the action, all the character building, the graphics were there. It was faithful to the movie, not the books, the movie. But it was missing one major feature. It wasn't multiplayer.
Oh,
so
no.
Nick just had to come over and you'd play, or you would watch Nick play.
So we had this amazing multiplayer experience where we would legitimately play 8 hours into the night of Return of the King.
I actually do remember that.
And then
game.
we
It
go
was
into
really
Two
good.
Towers, and it was like,
not
well,
there.
That's just
one
that's
of
so
us has
funny.
to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Damn.
This is the thing. Like, that is the thing. If you're going to play a series, I am a big believer of legitimately, if you don't want to set yourself up for failure, you need to start at the beginning and work your way up. And that's like, for some series, that's crazy hard to do. Like, for some series, it really is that hard to do. Like, for example, let's say you want to, like, even for, like, not necessarily, like, super, for example, you know, a super short series is like the Silent Hill series. There are like 8 mainline Silent Hill games. There are 8, right? That doesn't seem
That's
too
a
bad.
short series?
Yeah, I was
There
gonna
are-
say.
There
How
are
many of them
8,
have remakes
but
now?
like there are 8. But if you only want to play like the Silent Hill series, as an example, is split up into like sort of like 2 world lines, like two universes, and each universe has about 4 games. So you could play like a complete Silent Hill series in 4 games.
That's a
Okay.
short series?
That's the shortest that I know of. Right? The only other one I could think of is like what was the series with Alma? It was a horror game. That one was 3 games.
Fatal Frame? Not Fatal Frame.
Wait, is it
no,
Fatal?
Fatal
No,
Frame
not Fatal
wasn't a
Frame.
sequential game. think.
What was it?
Was
it wasn't Dead Space. It was something Dead something. I can't remember, but it was a 3-game series. But either way, Silent Hill is like 4.
Okay.
If you want to play like the 4 Silent Hill games, like if you play like the latest Silent Hill games, they are amazing experiences. If you try and play like Silent Hill 8 Downpour and then you jump to Silent Hill 1, like you are gonna get flashbanged by the difference in gameplay, the graphic, like
And
the
to be
graphical
clear,
differences. And like it's just a matter of age.
Yeah,
right?
like to be clear, it's like I think a lot of the
that's
things we're
true.
espousing are not like yeah, of course they're going to be
better
in,
later on.
better or later on, or like worse if you're playing the like worse in some sense. But I
But
think
you
I think it
aren't
depends on
ready
how
for it.
close it is. Like for example, I have like Final Fantasy 9. Now Final Fantasy 9 is like 5 Final Fantasies ago, but I haven't played any of the new ones past 8. I have played 7. I have played 8. I played
And 9.
4. I haven't played 9 yet, but if I play 9, it'll be okay because I haven't played
your
like,
boilerplate is set.
yeah,
at
like
8.
10 or 12 or whatever it is.
Yeah, but they're all also like different. They're not sequential games, right?
No, they're not.
Yeah, but even-
some,
they're not
but they're still
sequential,
going to
but there's
carry
gameplay.
mechanics. They're going to carry
Yeah.
character development in terms of like how they have expanded their own ideas about how characters need to move within the story and things like that.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah, that's more about like production value getting better.
that is true, but I mean, for
Well,
Final
exactly.
Fantasy is not going to exactly change its production value. You know what I mean? Like, they'll have
yeah,
They're-
but like
It will
They're-
always be the biggest budget thing that they can do.
exactly.
right. But even going to like an actual sequential line of Final Fantasies, like Final Fantasy 13, the first game was pretty janky. They clearly shoved in a lot of
Yeah.
open world stuff right at the very end of the game. When open world games were like really popular,
Mhm.
there were a lot of things that just weren't great about it. I did
Yeah.
like a lot of things about its battle system, like having actual defined roles and then having those paradigms shifting all the time. That was really
Mhm.
fun. But the second game, despite not actually having Lightning in it as a playable character, refined a lot of that battle system stuff that felt kind of janky, like in the first game. If whomever you are actually controlling, because you can switch around and control different characters in your party, but if you happen to be this character and that character gets wiped in battle, it's game over. That's it. In the second game, if your current character gets wiped, it just switches control over to the next character.
Right, which is a much better gameplay experience. Like I
exactly.
I think we're all agreeing with each other. Like
we are in various ways.
The closer the games are released sequentially, the worse it feels to go backward.
To play again, specifically to play a game that you have not played in the series.
Right, because
it's okay if you've done it before.
You can see, like, exactly, if you've done it before, it's familiar and friendly, and there's the nostalgia pleasure experience.
You almost accept it because you know
what to expect. But when you go backwards, you're like, oh, I can see and feel the improvements that of course happen.
And it's hard to not expect those.
Yeah.
One thing that Dio hit on there, I think, is the crux of the issue. The closer the games are together, like if it is one game and then the next, in the case of Skyward Sword and then Breath of the Wild, the comparison feels so close that it feels bad. If you go far enough back that there's a paradigm shift in the game, like if you compare Final Fantasy 13-2 to Final Fantasy 1,
they're not actually the same game. Yeah.
Right. They're
they're
so
totally
fundamentally different that you're just kind of like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
They're
it's
just
like,
totally different things.
It completely resets my expectations of it. So
yeah.
My entry to Mega Man was Mega Man Battle Network, right?
Yo, Battle Network is sick. It's such a good spin-off game. It just had a
re-release.
Yes, it just re-released on Switch and Steam, I think. I think it's on Steam. Yeah.
It's on Steam. And they were fantastic games.
Good.
And that made me think, well, I want to go see what Mega Man's all about. I'll just get myself an NES emulator.
And then you got slapped?
I'll download some ROMs. Holy shit, that stuff is hard. I don't know why, but it was Mega Man 2 was the first ROM that I found. And so I played that and I loved it. It was so good. It was amazing. Legitimately, still from the NES era, still my favorite game. I tried going back to Mega Man 1 after playing Mega Man 2. What a fucking piece of shit. Goddamn. Jesus Christ. Mega Man 1 does not have rights.
How did Capcom ever stay in business?
So, legitimately, how did Mega Man 2 ever happen after how garbage Mega Man 1 was? But, you know what? Point remains, if the games are very close together, very, very much temporally linked, it feels bad.
The gap feels bigger than it is.
Decades apart, you know what? It feels completely different. It's fresh. It's good.
Yeah, like I think it's like if something is released within like say 1 to 2 years of another game, like you feel like they should feel identical, but they don't because like obviously in the development time they've had the ability to iterate and like get the feedback from the players and be like, oh yeah, these things didn't work, I'm gonna fix them. But you as a player didn't experience that. So you just feel like you're kind of like getting the 8.0, like as you said, you're getting the beta that never was. One
franchise that I think would be actually difficult to go through even though it's been around for decades is probably Pokemon, because the game is very much fundamentally similar throughout all its generations and iterations. Like the biggest upgrades are graphics and battle mechanics.
Yeah.
But the basic battle mechanics are always the same.
Always the same.
The familiarity with the characters, like Pokemon, are always the same. So if if you're like 10 now or whatever, and you're playing Scarlet and Violet or like Sword and Shield, I imagine it would be very it's hard, so bad to go back to like Gen 1 because like the mechanics are all over, like they're essentially the same, but they're not polished yet, and they're things
what
like
do you mean I can't run in towns.
You can't run in general.
What do you
Yeah.
mean?
You can't run
I
in Gen
can't
1.
use the bike
Indoors.
in the caves.
Indoors. You can use the bike in the caves, but you can't use the bike indoors. And then somehow, without even having a phone, Professor Oak becomes
Can call
God
you
and tells
constantly,
you
yeah.
and says, like, you shouldn't do that. It's like, but
Yeah,
how? How
like
did you
it's
tell me?
just it's gonna be a jarring experience. It's funny. I think the same thing kind of happens with anime, specifically with visual anime art styles, because like I grew up with like early 2000s / late 90s anime, and especially late 90s anime had a very distinct style. I would say now that we're in the 2020s, it's very clear what the visual style was for the early 2000s.
I've
like
categorized the era that we watched anime in, like that kid
the Y2K
experience. Yeah, is maybe the garbage era of anime, by the way.
I disagree. I disagree.
No. There's classics, but there's always classics in every era. And I'm sorry to hijack, but the point being, the reason why I can say that is because I think that's the point where, as with most mediums, that's when anime really got a boost, which meant they really greenlit a bunch of crap.
Yes. Okay.
You
know
I
what?
take it back. I do agree with you now, because I will agree that is the time where, as you said, anime boomed and it really hit a critical mass where if it existed, it could be an anime.
Yes.
And that means whether it was the
not
greatest
only
narrative
that.
known to man or the absolute dredge of garbage from the bottom of the garburator, it got animated.
The early 2000s also had a shift on how anime was produced.
Yeah,
True.
it became faster to do digital animation.
Not just that, I mean, in the seasonal culture of anime, that we have now, where every 3 months you've got a new batch of anime coming out. That wasn't around back then.
That wasn't a thing back then.
In
No,
the 80s
not at all.
and right into the 90s. In fact, this kind of ended at the end of the 90s. If you had a show, you just kept making episodes.
Until you didn't want to anymore or couldn't afford to anymore.
Until nobody watched them, basically.
Yeah.
So, like, seasons as a thing. If you think about Dragon Ball Z, where did one season end versus another?
It all
there's
bled
no
together
line.
because there was no need for there to be a line.
And we kind of saw this for things like Bleach and Naruto in the early 2000s. But like what Jay was saying, that kind of ended. Suddenly we were getting seasonal anime. And while we remember the good stuff, there was a lot of shit.
Well,
there was definitely a lot of trash.
So seasonal anime partially exists because of the distaste that we have for fillers.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
Manga has to get ahead.
The manga has to get ahead. People hated filler. And so the idea is we'll do a season. We'll take 1 to 2 to 4 seasons off. We'll come back with another season, take 4 seasons off. And that gives, the mangaka, the author, 2 years to get ahead of where we are in animation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there's
say-
definitely a very distinct style from that time.
Yeah, but okay, so let's talk about how much anime there was back then. I feel like because people were so much more willing to take risks with just animating anything and everything, that's how we got so much more experimentation. Stuff like Ghost in the
100%.
Shell, some of the more cerebral stuff that came out
Would
back
never
then.
have existed in another time.
And,
Yeah.
But you can say that about
things
all
were just
art.
Yeah, but you had far more different modes of artistic expression using animation than we do now. Everything now feels a lot more samey.
Yeah, I think I will agree. I agree with both of you. I think anime at that period of time definitely hit a critical mass, and as a result of hitting that critical mass, because anything and everything could be made in anime, it meant we got everything from really well engineered masterpieces to experimental trash to experimental awesome stuff. Nowadays, because we've kind of gone through that sort of puberty of developing
There's a formula now,
anime.
and it's a clear one.
But to
Exactly,
be,
that it's
to be
like-
clear, garbage anime still exists. I
Yeah,
am not
totally.
saying that, but I think
We
that
still
if, but
watched
if you
the
want to
first
talk,
episode-ish of X-Arm
Yeah.
years ago.
but what I'm saying is that the ratio of quality to garbage has drastically improved
Has
in favor
definitely
of
shifted.
quality.
Yeah.
It's probably like 70-30 if I had to really put a rough
I
number
would
on
say
it.
the same.
Yeah.
I actively disagree with Nancy's point about anime now feeling samey versus anime in the early 2000s, maybe.
No.
late 90s.
I'm with Nancy on this one for sure.
So
Because the variety was there.
No. We still have variety now. Quite frankly, you guys forget
we?
how samey those eras were.
I mean,
Late
Oh, okay,
90s, early
okay,
2000s
fair,
was
fair.
all about harem. Harem was the isekai of the early 2000s.
That is true. And then Moe.
That was Moe. That was the Moe blob era.
No.
If you weren't
Yeah, but
keeping up
that's
with seasonal
trending.
anime back
But
then,
what I'm- but-
90% of it was Moe blob anime.
No.
And you
Yeah,
only had
and
like
the
That's
one
current
trend is
Durragon
isekai.
and one like.
But
And now
no.
isekai is the current
There's
trend.
you're focusing. So there's
when you
there's
look at-
the
when you
argument
look
is
at
not
isekai, when you look at what
your
everything
argument's
is
not
out right
kosher.
now,
It's
it
not on
feels
kosher
very
grounds.
samey, but there's a lot of really good, really different stuff.
Your argument
Yes,
is not
but
kosher.
that's not the argument we're making. You're making the argument that like anime had like trending genres, and that's true.
He's arguing for genre, but he's not arguing for content.
Yeah, content, style, different kinds of storytelling.
That's different from
Yeah.
genre.
Yes. Yeah.
I still disagree.
No, because I think here's the thing. I think back then you could like I'm watching Serial Experiments Lane for the first time.
Oh,
Like now I've never seen
I still
Lane
need
before.
to finish that.
That music is so cool,
And it's
the
really
concept.
cool.
And especially
And,
I think for someone
And
who
it's
is
very cerebral.
like you in your like I think the work
Yeah.
that you do, your interests that you do, I think
It
there's a
very
real
much
cool,
aligns
like,
with me.
aligns. I'm glad that you
It
finally
does.
got into it. I watched it like
And
way
I'm really
way back.
enjoying it.
Yeah.
But I think it's not you could get something visually like Lane now. And you could get a story and I haven't finished it so no spoilers
Sure.
or anything. I think you could get a story like Lane now. But I don't think you could get a story and a visual like Lane in the format that Lane is presented in now.
No.
In
I
that
think it is
execution.
very
If-
unique to its time.
If anything, the only thing I can really say that like Angelo has a sort of adjacent point to, anime looks more similar to each other now.
Yes.
I think in the 90s and 2000s there was a bigger overall difference
experimentation of
in
visual
art style. Yes.
Yeah.
I because it's not to
No,
say that
I
there's
still
no
disagree even with that.
it's not to say that there's no variation now, but it's like there's
But
there's
it's
fewer like a lot of it has to do with just like if they outsource their animation to certain places or not surprisingly when artists do imitate each other and steal from each other in terms of styles, so you always get that like we've moved away from knife faces
Yeah.
to like the moe that we have now, and then like sort of the cuteness or whatever trend that you have going on now. But
Mhm.
I think
still disagree with you. I think that because
And you're
your
allowed.
visions
yeah,
are molded by what we currently see today, you forget all of the garbage anime
Oh,
of
no.
days past.
No,
we
no.
are agreeing
Mm-mm.
that there was a lot of garbage in the past.
Yeah.
Way more garbage.
that's why
But
that's
the
why I
thing-
called it
yeah.
the garbage age.
Yeah.
But
It was
overall,
but
it was far
overall-
more voluminous.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I
Like,
think what it is, it's not there's
Variety
there's
was
garbage
bred
then.
by the amount,
Yeah, like-
by variation.
There was garbage then, there is garbage now, but you get a lot less garbage now because of the pubescent phase of just
I'm
having
not arguing
like
about the garbage.
and-
I'm arguing about the sameness. I think that anime right now,
Just less same?
any individual bit of anime right now, you can find greater variations than you could in the 90s or 2000s.
Yes,
So-
but I think it's a matter of scale. I think if you look at the sheer amount, like there is just more stuff being made now than there was then.
So
That's
this is
probably it.
purely like anecdotal, but I really stopped watching a lot of shows in the 2010s because a lot of them felt like rehashes of stuff I'd already seen in the 2000s.
And I
in the
could
Could
sense-
also
in the
just
sense-
be like our age.
It could
And
be,
I-
but
but
at
I
that
also-
sense, I could tell you honestly that there were shows that I had started. I'm like, I feel I can predict the story. Unfortunately,
And
like
I-
I can tell
yeah.
you what it was, and I would be proven right by the end, and I'd be like, that sucks. I don't really want to watch. Like I'm not saying I need to have every twist and turn. I'm just saying I don't need that formula that they were still pushing from the 2000s into the 2010s. I think they're evolving away from that now, which is nice.
Yeah. I think this is again the matter of scale. So if the 90s and like is like the first boom, this is where we like, you know, you go from having say 5 anime in a season to like 100 anime in a season. And now we've hit a point where we have like 500 anime in a season. So it's just like,
thank God it's not actually that much.
It's not actually that much, but like
it's like 40.
We're talking about like that kind of exponential scale.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, in the middle of that scale, you have a bunch of stuff and the quality is super varied. Nobody knows what they're doing. There's no sort of like there's no rules, there's no guardrails. People are just putting stuff out and seeing what works. Now we've hit a point where people understand what works. They're still experimenting within what works. We still see like really cool genre twists. Like Madoka Magica was the surprise magical girl genre twist that nobody expected that did incredibly well, and also defined several years following it of several shitty dark magical girl shows that were horrendous.
That's always going to be the case. You're always going to have imitations.
You're always going to have imitators. But I think now what's really interesting is people like, not only has the technology progressed in such a way and like the talent has progressed and budgets have shifted, that now we get to like, you have people iterating within a safe sort of runway of stuff that just works. And I think that's where the concept of things being samey kind of comes from, in that you will like, I don't think you would see something like Lane air on TV in 2023. No. It would because there's no way it would pull numbers.
Yeah, and there's something to be said too about just like how the business of animation has changed. Like Angelo said, like there's definitely way more of a push for shows that can sustain themselves on merchandise, not and actual
Blu-ray sales,
viewing ratings. And animation studios not actually making a whole lot of money from the animations themselves. So there's a lot of that too, and just how commercialization of animation has changed a lot in the last 2 decades. But Dio has also just unfortunately reminded me that Madoka Magica is over 10 years old now.
Yeah, it's 13 years old now.
Yep.
God damn it.
It's a teenager.
It came out the same year that Steins Gate did.
It did.
Nice.
Just like Lucky Star and Gurren Lagann aired the same season.
Yep.
In 2007.
That's a good year.
Yeah, 2007 was a great year.
In contrast, Azumanga Daioh is still central to a lot of jokes I make.
This has been a great podcast.
It has been.
And it will continue to be a great podcast.
Yeah.
Because we'll see you next time.
Exactly.
Next year.
No.
Wow.
To be totally clear, obviously Otafest is coming up, so quick roadmap for listeners. We probably have about 7 or 8 episodes left to go before our season ends as well. So please look out for that. We will not be recording for Otafest. We're just super busy, unfortunately. But we've also figured that the content that we record during Otafest kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense because we're in the middle of a con and we're just sort of giving you a mid-con update. I don't know if there's a lot of value in that, so I'd rather just give you the pre-con and post-con.
Sensical.
You know?
We saw these things that already happened and you can't see now. Better catch the other things.
Yeah, exactly. So we will catch up with you then. Keep on listening. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Set the place on.